Okay, so for today's ad, this isn't one that I've actually done before, but I'm doing one on offering free CMAs. So one that you don't need a listing for, you don't have to borrow somebody else's listing. It's something you can do relatively quickly. I will say I kind of cheated a little bit. I already set up my landing page just because this one was a little bit more intensive than a listing, but I will still show you kind of what I did to set it up. So I'm going to go into my consumer applet. And then I will go into edit so I can show you kind of what it looks like, how I mapped it out, what widgets I brought over. So I just brought over a branded header. I did within content blocks, I did a text blocks. So that's what's coming from here. I did a lead form and then a legal footer. So when I actually go to look at this one, it's a live link. And it kind of explains what a CMA is, what's different about a Keller Williams agent. And then it asks them, leave your address down below. One of our agents will be in touch to offer you a free CMA and see what your home is worth. So I changed this instead of or whatever the default is, I changed it to leave your information below and then the legal footer. So it is pretty simple. It was just adding in the text box, and I didn't want to spend time trying to kind of map out what I wanted to say in here on the call, because that really is the most time intensive portion of it. It's definitely the hardest part about running an ad. And since my computers, the designs, I'm trying to work on it, but they just do not like to work on my laptop. So I already have my design ready to go. It's just one I pulled from the design library, just a what is your home worth? I replaced the logo. That's really it. So I'm going to go into not opportunities. I'm going to go into campaigns and start mapping this thing out. So I'm going to create a new campaign. I'm going to use a paid social ad, free CMA, and then the goal of this is to attract listings. You have 3 options, either run it on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. You can do all 3. I will say I've never actually seen anybody run an ad on Twitter. Facebook is the most common. Instagram, of course, is owned by Facebook, so that's a little bit similar. I know within Instagram, you have the option to do either the in-feed ads or the story ads. So that's definitely something you can play with. But I'm just going to stick to only Facebook today, and I'm going to set up my campaign. I'm going to give it a second to bring in whatever it needs to. Okay. So over here, once I start setting that up, this is what my ad is actually going to look like. So it does kind of give you some guidance if you want to get in here quickly and just get an ad out. It does give you some suggestions. I kind of have what I want in here written out already just to be safe. So I'm just going to copy and paste it in here. So I have houses are flying off the market and now is a great time to sell. Do you know what your home is worth? Lucky for you, our agents do. Our office is offering free CMA evaluations on your home. You also have the option to look for emojis. So I could come in here and kind of search house. I could look for like a fun question mark. Okay. Never mind. Kind of the annoying part, you can't really place it where you want. So it has to be at the end of the text that you're using. So there's my house. Oh. It's a little bit easier when you're just putting in the text here. I kind of want to route it that way, so that's why we're having a little bit of difficulties. Okay, my headline is going to be click learn more for more information. because the sole goal of this is to get whoever is looking at it to click learn more. So you kind of want to always dangle what they're going to get if they click that button in front of their face. So they're getting free CMA evaluations on their home. They have to click learn more and go through the steps in order to get there. Description. Just putting enter your address and an agent will get you your free home value. So it does have recommended text. The recommended is 125 characters or less. You can have up to 250. If you have too much, it does cut off. So I wouldn't recommend getting it there. The point of these, you never want to give away too much information. Luckily, this time I don't have a listing, so there's not really a whole lot of information to give out. So I'm just going to kind of keep that how it is. So I'm going to save my ad text. And then next I need to pull in my ad media. So I'm going to configure. I'm going to select media for this campaign. I'm going to browse my design library and see if it'll let me do that. If not, I have it downloaded to my computer, so no big deal. Okay. I'm going to preview and crop image. And I'm going to keep it as the wide. You do have other options. You can play around and see what you're using it as. Just kind of think about where you're putting it. Like this full portrait, it's best for Instagram stories. Square goes with everything. So the square is really Facebooky and Instagram friendly. I'm going to keep the wide just so it doesn't get rid of my image. And then you do have the ability to add up to 5 images. I'm just going to stick with 1. If this was a listing, I would do more, but just with the nature of this ad, I'm just going to leave it to that 1. It's going to be the simple one. I'm going to put that on the right just to kind of even that out. I'm going to save my media. I'm going to configure my Facebook ad. So right now it's just a generic Keller Williams, but as soon as I switch it to Keller Williams-Fayetteville, which is the page that my profile is tied to, it'll, that's actually what our Facebook picture is. So you can't run these on a Facebook profile. It has to be through a business page. So that's something you can get set up in your campaigns applet. You can connect your page in there. The next is the destination. This is probably the most important part. You always want to use the Facebook lead generation form if you want to get leads. So what this means is when they click learn more, a little screen is going to pop up where they have to put in their name, their phone number, and their email address. They have to put that in order to continue on to your landing page. If I were to just use a site or a landing page, I would have to hope that once they get to my landing page, they would put their information in the little contact box that I left them. You know, that doesn't always happen. This definitely guarantees basically a lead capture. Of course, they can X out of it when they get to it, but you're kind of dangling what they're getting by clicking that learn more and going through the steps. So if they want to actually get there, they'll fill it out. Most of the time it's pre-filled for them. So it's kind of just up to them at that point. Your button call to action, I always leave it as learn more because really that's the only one that kind of makes sense in the instances that I always do. If you're running like a Facebook ad for maybe you're hiring somebody, the sign up or the apply now might be good. And just kind of think of the nature of your ad. Learn more is really the only one that makes sense in this case. The follow-up destination URL is going to be my landing page. So I'm going to choose landing page and it is going to be my free CMA link, I believe, because that is what I named it. So I'm going to click that one. And then I'm going to see if I can go to it and just make sure because I had a few, it wasn't formatting how I wanted it to earlier. So that is the correct one. And it would not pop up in my options unless it was actually active. So it was a blue live link in my consumer applet. So that's why it will let me give that as an option. Okay, so ad targeting. So my default is 20 miles within Fayetteville. I'm just going to leave it as that, but I am going to toggle on custom settings. So if I wanted to change it, I could. If I wanted to change the radius, I could. I tend to just stick with 20 miles of wherever, Just be careful with this. Sometimes it does default to Austin, Texas if it can't figure out where you are, just because that's where a regional is. I don't think you want to be doing ads in Austin, Texas, but so keep that in mind. And if you pull in a listing, it'll usually do 20 miles of wherever that listing is. So Fayetteville, Hope Mills, wherever. Expert targeting. So this is optional. I really need to play around with this more, and I say that every time, but it's kind of hard unless I want to run 2 ads at the same time to really gauge if it matters. I have pretty good success with it, so I tend to keep using it. Once I click in here, I can choose, you're basically refining your audience by targeting interests. So there's a ton in here to choose from. Usually I just kind of think of the nature of my ad. Some teams and agents who run ads all the time, they have a set list of ones that they always pull from. I don't necessarily. I always choose like the realtor.com, the Zillow, the Trulia, but I always stick with realtor.com, not realtor.com Pro, because you have to think about who's typically showing interest in these two. We want to target people who are interested in realtor.com, not realtor.com Pro, because that's usually, you know, realtors. Same thing with Trulia. I stick with Trulia, not Premier Agent, Zillow, and Trulia. Zillow. And then I usually, at this point, it's kind of just, I always pick those 3. They usually just come to mind. And at this point, it's really just whatever pops to my mind. I usually search things for mortgage, finance, homes, anything like that. So let's do mortgage insurance. We'll do mortgage loans. Do credit, personal finance, investing, so there's anything good in money. I'll say money management. I haven't tried that one before. So now I have 11. So don't think of it as it's narrowing down who's going to see this ad. Think about it how it's narrowing down the quality of the people who's going to see this ad and the quality and the most likeliness they are to actually be interested in this. So I'm going to save my Facebook ad. I'm kind of going to give it one last little glance over. This is a really simple one, so I'm really curious to see how it's going to kind of perform. The last step is the budget. So you're totally in charge of this. However much money you want to spend, this is kind of where you get to decide that. I recommend, you know, deciding that ahead of time. I always stick with $20 and I always run it for 4 days. So I am going to set this one up to start on Monday, and it is going to run until, it says until Friday, really it ends Thursday at midnight. So I guess that technically is Friday, but whatever. So I'm doing it 4 days. It's going to start Monday morning, and by Thursday night, it'll be wrapped up. That's how I get the results on Friday to show you guys. I'm going to save my budget. And then at this point, you know, if you want to change between web feed and mobile to kind of see what they're, this is what I was talking about, that it cuts off a little bit. I'm just going to leave it as is. I believe if you stick to the 125 characters, it shouldn't do that. I think that's why that's the limit. I'm at 195, so I did go a little bit over that, but 125 characters is not a whole lot. So I'm just gonna call that a day and do it. So from here, I'm just going to publish campaign. I already have a card uploaded, so if you don't, you'll have to add a new one in here. I'm going to create campaign. I'm going to wait 10 years for the Wi-Fi to get itself together. And now you'll see it's pending review. So it has to be reviewed by Facebook. There's certain rules it has to follow. You can't offend anybody. You can't insult anybody. You can't say that people are stupid for renting, anything like that. It doesn't like stuff about alcohol, drugs. Use your common sense. That's what I'm saying. But once it is active, it'll turn green and it'll say active, and it'll run, and my leads will start coming in, and then my figures will start updating. Are there any questions?